Welcome everyone to a casted game of Age of Empires 4, and today spawning in the southwest corner of the map, playing in green, we have got Count playing as the Byzantines, and his opponent in the northeast playing in purple. We've got Felisberto playing as the Byzantines. Welcome everyone to a Byzantine civil war on the map Gorge, and I've got to say this is one of my most favourite maps. It's got a lot of potential, I think, even on the tournament scene. It's an exciting one. I think it really encourages aggression. Obviously, both players can really head into the middle, and they've got a direct access against each other, right? So it's incredibly strong, I feel. The thing that excites me the most about the Byzantines in this particular matchup is I don't think we've seen that many mirror matches. Now, usually, I don't necessarily like casting mirror matches. It becomes very stale and unidimensional. But I would say that's all changed, right? Because what new civilizations, the new Sultan's Ascend DLC brings out 6 new civilizations, 2 brand new ones, and 4 variant civilizations. And I think just whilst the players are still figuring things out, I actually think mirror matches could be very, very cool. Now, we saw a Japanese mirror match yesterday between Demu and Louis MT, and it just highlighted the differences that you can choose in terms of playstyles and how much of a big impact that can make. So the Byzantines going up against each other today, I think it's a unique one. Like, you can have 2 very different approaches to the Byzantines, I feel, and I think it really is an interesting civilization. It feels like you really got to make your choice as well, depending on what you're up against, right? Because in this particular case, it doesn't really matter because it's a mirror match, so I think reacting to each other and what they do is very important. But obviously with the 2 approaches, you've got the Imperial Hippodrome, you've got the Grand Winery. One certainly does scale quite nicely throughout the game, and one kind of seems to really do a lot better in the late game. The Grand Winery do get you that little bit of a boost in the olive oil for the early game, maybe get a couple of mercenaries out a little bit nice and early. But after that, it doesn't feel that strong until sort of the late Castle Age, perhaps. Especially when you get the Olive Grove transition in and you start getting more olive oil to spend. But the Imperial Hippodrome can have that aggression attached to the Byzantines. And I would be expecting in this particular matchup, this mirror matchup, I would expect both players to go for the Imperial Hippodrome. We see that confirmation there for Kalp. I'm interested to see what Felisberto does, because if he doesn't go for the Hippodrome, that will put him at a big disadvantage in terms of military early on. Primarily because of the fact that if he's playing up against Hippodrome, he's effectively having someone go up with a stable with good upgrades for the horsemen. And if he goes for the Grand Winery and he tries to play the eco approach, especially if Kalp decides to go for certain technologies that increase the attack that horsemen have against villagers, and gives him 20 gold per villager he kills, if that's the state of play in this case, it's going to be very difficult for Felisberto. So I'm pretty expecting to see the Imperial Hippodrome, especially if he scouts it out. But I think if he doesn't have that information, let's just see if he has that information or not. He doesn't yet. I think even if he lacks that information, just to be safe and secure, it might be worth going for the Hippodrome, but he should probably get confirmation about it, considering his scout is very close by, so we'll have to see. Interestingly enough, Felisberto did actually go for a wheelbarrow before aging up, which we have seen occasionally, but not all that often. Ultimately, they do end up getting that mill, so it kind of makes sense in a way, because they've already built it on the berry bushes. And it is going to be that Imperial Hippodrome. It does delay his tech up a little bit there, of course, going for wheelbarrow, but it will be nice for his economy in the next 5-10 minutes. It does also mean that if he's being raided, the villagers should be able to get out of harm's way a little bit quicker. Both players with... well, actually, in fact, the nice thing for Kalp is his gold is quite far back, right? And so that will be quite nice to be able to protect quite easily. The concern for Felisberto is his gold is far forward, and so this comes a situation where if Kalp does really mount a massive pressure in the late feudal age, it could be very difficult for Felisberto to be able to tick up to the Castle Age. And even if he does, it could be very difficult for him to produce a lot of units. And by units, I mean heavily armoured units, of course, the ones that cost gold, and that's often what the Byzantines would like to do with the Varangian Guard and the Cataphract. Interesting enough, though, Louis... Oh, I was about to say Louis. I'm so used to casting Louis games, but such Felisberto, he did actually start building the Imperial Hippodrome with 4 villagers, so he won't be too far behind in terms of tech up. But it does mean he traded an early wheelbarrow for a little bit more inefficiency with the total villager gathering, because of course he spent another villager actually building the landmark. Kalp going to go for an early water level tier 2, and I think it's an interesting playing style. I do feel like the Byzantines, this does work quite well for them, because the boosting that you get from the extra water level is quite significant. At the moment it's 5% on the villagers. It can be obviously increased to 10%, 15% and 20%, and so on, depending on the water level, and it looks like Kalp is opting for that. Opting for the berries as well. That's going to give him a bit of more of an injection of olive oil. Maybe thinking about getting mercenary house. I would love to see what both these players actually go for in terms of first production buildings, right? You kind of expect either a barracks or an archer range, of course, because they've already got the Imperial Hippodrome. It's going to be a barracks for Filisberto. Maybe look to add in a couple of the Limitani. I think, I need to figure out how to pronounce that. Is it Limitani? I think it's Limitani. Let's say Limitani. That sounds easier. In any case, it's going to be that tech that Expilatores there for Calp. That's going to be adding that +2 damage on the horseman and the additional 20 gold for each villager killed. So I'm pretty excited to see if he's going to be a bit more aggressive and try and get some raiding. Going to go for an archery range as well. So he's going to go for a 1-1-1 of each production building, and that's going to really mix that army composition. Does make it a little bit more tricky for Calp to deal with that, right? He's going to have to think about really with what he wants to go. In any case, he's actually going to go for more of an eco approach. Calp does love to do that, by the way. That's an interesting aqueduct system, I've got to say. That's a lot of stone to be spending. I mean, I do wonder whether it would have been cheaper just to have gone from here. Who knows? Anyway, it will be nicely well connected. Sticking with just one villager on stone for now. And we'll be getting the veterancy upgrade or the harden upgrade for the Limitani. Bit of an engagement here. The horsemen are looking good in numbers there for Calp. Got 2 versus 3 and scouts are going to have to back away. Of course, Calp is keeping up just because of the charge, but it's going to run into problems once the Limitani come out. Water level 2 coming up for Filisberto as well. Well, it's going to be diving in the economy maybe a little bit. Doesn't necessarily have the numbers here, Calp, but it does have the positioning. He's starting to stream them quite a few, but the Limitani are on hand to defend, and I think it's brought about by the fact he's got to forward gold, right? He's a bit paranoid by that, Filisberto, and rightly so. Like, you can't afford villagers to be kept idle, and that's definitely a target for Calp, that forward gold position. Alright, so it's going to be a mercenary house. That's the first production building. Kind of makes sense because of the olive oil that's collected here. He's also going to go for a barracks. So it's going to match like for like in many ways. What's interesting to see is what mercenary contract these guys are going up with. Obviously, Filisberto we don't know just yet because he hasn't got the mercenary house. But I'm kind of expecting Calp to go for the Western mercenary contract. It's a very commonly done one. I mean, you could even go for the Eastern one for the Keshiks. It's quite commonly done as well. I don't often see the Silk Road one. And it is indeed going to be the Western mercenary contract. So that's going to give him access to longbows, which I think is a really nice addition. Especially thinking about possibly the late game approaches to things. He already does have the ability to get cataphracts on the field, right, with the Byzantines. And I think, whilst they are very expensive, if you can mass them up, I do feel like they're probably one of the most population-efficient units that the game has. It does feel like that way that this game could go a long way, because we've got both players really ecoing it out. Water level at level 4 here for Filisberto. A bit of a raiding coming in here from the north for Calp. He will get one of the Limitani, just getting a good surround on them. No villagers killed just yet. Maybe diving in a bit further. Not enough Limitani here. And what could be a situation here for Filisberto, it's just because he's kind of early teched into the barracks units, it does mean he's going to be under pressure for a bit. It's kind of inviting it in some ways, but I think it's an exciting stage of the game, like how the map spawn can really dictate that. It feels like the forward gold has forced him into this position to tech into a lot of Limitani and try and make sure he's safe. The early extra horseman that Calp got as well really started to push him back a little bit. But well, Filisberto trying to say that anything you can do, I can do better. He's trying to get a bit of raiding action himself. Just to let you know as well, they do get this access to border settlement. It's a really nice tech up for their houses. Gives them a lot of line of sight. We're going to dive on the gold villagers. Should get one, and he should get a little +20 there, Calp, for that little kill. And he's also going to be using the ability from the Imperial Hippodrome, using Triumph to heal up his units on the retreat. Oh, but Filisberto going to do the same, and he's going to do a lot of damage there. Does take out 2 villagers. And certainly with a couple of longbow there for Calp, that should help him defend. He's going to raid that wood line again. Calp's going to be careful to move those villagers away. Triumph is in. That's going to increase the attack and movement speed of these units. But he doesn't get too much value, and on the retreat, longbow probably will take out a horseman or 2. Should be okay for now. Calp's numbers are looking pretty healthy though. He's going to try and catch them off. And I think there's something quite unique about these units, of course, with the Triumph ability, increasing that movement speed of the cavalry. Really helps them dictate the terms of engagements. There we go, plus 10% on the movement speed and increasing that damage by 20%. It's quite significant. It's taking the fight there. It's a good fight there for Calp, of course, and that's a good wraparound. Calp just trying to cut off the retreat. Felisberto needs to get out of there as best as he can. He might just with these 4 units. He needs to keep them alive as best as he can, because every unit lost is a big problem. Right, backs off for now. One little extra detail to mention as well against the Byzantines. Now, whilst obviously it's a different beast if you're going with the Imperial Hippodrome against a non-Byzantine civilization, the raiding is actually quite difficult with the Byzantines, as long as you remember to. If you get this tech here, or ability I should say, Akritoi defense, increases the village's attack by, it gives them a 10 attack. They start off with a base, base 6, and it goes up by 4 with that, and also gives them a bit of armor. It's actually very difficult to raid at times, even with horsemen. So the players do need to be careful about that, and make sure they use that tech as much as they can if they are raided. But in any case, both players are kind of pretty safe and content with their situation. Felisberto made sure he's got the palisade walls up. Calp not so much, he's a little bit more exposed, but he feels confident in terms of military numbers that he's got. Might be starting to get an olive grove transition. That's quite a nice olive grove transition here already for Calp. So that olive oil income is going to start to increase pretty significantly. Right, Felisberto really looking to wall up. The concern for Felisberto is that he's a long way off Castle Age, and it feels like Calp might go there pretty soon. And the Olive Grove transition not quite as solid as Calp's at the moment. That's a lot of Olive Groves. Holy smokes. Yeah, Calp's certainly looking to get to that Castle Age, and it's not going to be too far off it. That's a lot of Limitanei, I've got to say. I mean, I think at this point of time, it's really important to talk about the army composition, right? I wonder what mercenary contract Felisberto went up with. Alright, he did go for the Western mercenary contract as well, but you don't see necessarily as many of those longbows. I think he's really struggled in terms of getting the olive oil, right? It's kind of tricky. Doesn't have the olive grove transition as much as Calp does. About to take an engagement potentially, looking just to see what he can find. I feel like in this kind of engagements, it really helps to have more longbows, because you're going to get a bit more damage. You can see he's already suffering some damage here, Felisberto, even not engaging. And it's always giving you that English vibes, right? You always have to be careful against the English with the longbowman mass. You kind of have to think, well, if you don't feel like you can win the fight outright, you definitely don't want to engage, because if you do engage and you have to retreat and you think twice about it, you're going to lose even more units. It does add that little bit of a dimension to the Byzantines. Also getting there's a nice important eco upgrade. It has double broad axe, which of course Felisberto doesn't have. He's going to start torching his way down through as well. Let's just see how much value he gets here. Going to try and burn things down, and the trouble is that it doesn't really feel like Felisberto has the setup to be too defensive. Doesn't have the range attack. He does have an outpost, which is great, but I think Calp would be quite happy just to burn this down. He's going to sacrifice a couple of horsemen to try and get through. How much damage he does? Oh, he's actually going to get some villagers there with the longbow. He sniped them. He doesn't even have steeled arrow. He managed to do it. The range on this guy is, holy smokes. It's +7, isn't it? Oh, 6, okay. It is 6. Oh, if he gets steeled arrow, then of course it'd be 7. But it's just coming in now. There we are. Or 7 damage, rather. Yeah, and 7 range. There we go. Right, Felisberto does have good numbers, but not necessarily of the right units. It feels like he's got a lot of Limitanei. But to be fair, there's a lot of cavalry here from Calp, I've got to say. And Calp, though, it does look like he's going to be ready to get to the next stage. He probably can't do too much damage in the field age whilst he is here, so he's going to be thinking about taking up. And I'll be interested to see the choice. I mean, he can often scale quite nicely with the tower, the Great Horn Tower. Get those 3 mercenary units. We'll see what he decides to do. At the moment, though, he's going to be camping out on that central sacred site. It is going to be the Golden Horn Tower in the end. Oh, wait, he cancelled it. He thought twice about it. It's going to go for it in the end. So this is a really nice landmark for the Byzantines. Gives you 3 units, 3 mercenary units, depending on the system's influence. And of course, he's got level 5, so he's absolutely fine. Looks like, oh, okay, Felisberto going to try and raid. He's going to get a good value here. Does use the triumph ability on the cavalry as well. He's going to take a couple of losses underneath the town centre. Villagers do garrison inside. But there's not enough space there. This is good raiding here. I mean, he's going to trade a couple of horsemen, though. The one thing that's a bit dangerous for him is that his opponent is taking up, right? So there could be a very big pushback. Does force Calp back home. which is not necessarily the worst thing because he's taking up, right? He needs to survive, make sure he's not getting pushed too hard. Speaking of which, well, Felisberto wants to do just that. Heading on the front, it does have a lot of units. I've got to say, a lot of it's infantry, though. A lot of it's spearmen, a lot of it's archers. Just look to burn things down. It's going to be taking a lot to get through this, though. That does buy a lot of time here for Kalp. He does need that time. I've got to say, though, if he decides to place a siege workshop and get a mangonel or two, that could be very dangerous for Felisberto. Instead, though, it looks like he's going to be going for the upgrade for the mercenary contract. Going to be upgrading those longbows, and that's going to be a great trade of a fight if you can get them in quick enough. Needs to be careful, though. He needs to buy a bit of time. It's going to be a good minute or so. He uses the triumph ability on his cavalry. The cavalry are going to dive on that. It's a good choke point there for Felisberto to fight in. But the trouble is, Felisberto has really dived in now. It's kind of do or die. I mean, he's kind of committed. It does have a lot of units, so he should be able to kill a lot of units before any sort of upgrades come in. I think generally it's a decent fight for Felisberto, but it might be starting to be overrun because he's committed so hard. It does have some reinforcements coming in, but they need to get in quicker. Oh, this is bad for Felisberto. Just not enough spearmen there in the end. They got sniped and the cavalry charged upon those archers. And the numbers have really thinned out for Felisberto. Definitely does still have a lead. But don't forget, he is out-teched now. And Felisberto can't take another engagement like that. Not until he gets to the castle age, you feel. And Kalp will be very happy that he managed to defend against that. Felisberto, though, is quite far away from that castle age. And it's a bit of a curious one, right? Because he has been on deer camps. He has been going out to the free food on the map. But he's just really struggled on food, right? And I think a lot of it comes down to the how much he spent on Limitanai. Yeah, that dive was a bit dangerous. He lost quite a bit. Oh, I like this addition from Kalp. Because he's going to be having a better static defense in this area. And also getting a second town center. And he knows that he knows that Felisberto is not too keen on another engagement like that. And now that Kalp has got the tech up, he'll feel confident in his Castle Age army to defend. Even if Felisberto tries to punish the second town center, the fact that Kalp is in the Castle Age, Felisberto is in the feudal age, means that Kalp is quite happy. Although having said that, Felisberto is going to stay in the feudal age for now and go for a Cairo Siphon. Actually, I take that back. Okay, sure, this is a good static defense, but the Cairo Siphon, when they get involved, it can become very dangerous. Only 7 spaces for the town center garrison inside. Longbow's going to try and focus on it, but these guys, they don't take all that much damage. Although with this number of longbowmen, it might actually do a decent amount of damage. And I think generally it's quite difficult to counter the Cairo Siphon unless you're in the castle age with springholds. I guess one way is with longbows though. The archer's getting involved by Felisberto. The trouble is for Kalp, he doesn't want to get close to this Cairo Siphon lest he gets burnt alive. He might need to actually give away this position. And that would be a nice pick off there for Felisberto. There's quite a lot of resources sunk into this town center. It's half health. Villages might come out to repair. They're going to have to. The Cairo Siphon though, getting good value. He's garrisoning in. Villagers coming out to repair, and I think there's good pressure from Felisberto. Is forcing the repairs out, right? And Kalp is going to be running out of wood pretty soon. There's that third Cairo Siphon. Horsemen are going to dive on that, but a lot of them are going to be burnt alive. This is not necessarily what you want to do. I mean, he does have a cataphract, so that should be okay, but he's going to have to commit. He's desperate to keep out the town center. And he might just... He did commit a lot there. The Greek fire dishing out all sorts of damage. One Cairo Siphon remains. And the town center should remain. Now behind this, Felisberto probably should be taking up to the castle age. He does have the resources for it. Don't forget, Kalp going to the castle age as well with the Horn Tower. The Golden Horn Tower. It means that he's getting 3 units, which Felisberto isn't at this point. And that's pretty important to consider in a mirror match. There we are, more Cairo Siphon being produced. Okay, well, Felisberto's not done with the feudal age pressure just yet. He wants to take out the second town center and punish Kalp's greed, rather. I don't necessarily hate this situation because it does mean that his forward gold is protected somewhat. Obviously, he's fighting on the front lines. He's going to go up with the Golden Horn Tower himself. Here comes the second engagement, the Cairo Siphon, 2 of them, but they're going to be sniped by the horsemen, the cavalry. Oh, that's a bit expensive that time. I'm not sure we got too much value out of those. The archers in the back line trying to do as much possibly damage they can do. But Kalp is well equipped with iron undermesh. All of a sudden, Kalp's going to need to rush some houses down. Now, interestingly, Kalp doesn't actually have this technology, border settlements. So it doesn't have the extra range of sight, and it doesn't have that speed of production. The 500% speed increase is actually crazy, by the way. As soon as you start hammering the house, it gets built really fast. So if you ever housed as the Byzantines and have that tech, well, you won't be housed for very long, that's for sure. Felisberto, though, as he is taking up, is heading back home, and that's certainly the right move to make. And I do worry for Felisberto's kind of approach in this situation now, because he's got a lot of units that are essentially feudal age units, and I think in mirror matches like this, you don't necessarily want these kind of units. They're going to be able to be upgraded, sure, but it doesn't really feel like there's enough spearmen here to hold off a massive cavalry attack, especially when you're dealing with cataphracts with the trample damage. It just feels like the longbowmen scale a little bit better than these guys. But we'll see. I would be interested to see who decides to take into Varangian Guards first. I think the problem with Varangian Guards in this situation is the mobility, and that can really hurt you. Especially if you want to be opening cavalry. Like, if you're up against cataphracts and you've got the choice to go Varangian Guards, of course you're going to go cataphracts instead. So I think we will see a much more of a cavalry play from both players rather than, say, the Varangian Guards. But we'll have to see. The concern for Felisberto, though, is he's going to be behind on economy unless he scales his economy somehow with the second town centre. Interesting enough, Count just keeping a house there, maybe just to get a bit of scouting information, just to make sure that his opponent isn't trading. That is the other option, actually, to scale his economy a little bit more. It's not always town centres you need, because don't forget, trading can give you olive oil, and I think that's a nice thing to think about. Like, if you think about super late game, sure, the olive groves really help, but trading could be quite nice as well. I'm not so sure about the interplay with trade, though, because it does feel like olive oil, in many ways, kind of replaces gold requirements for the Byzantines in the late game. So with trade, obviously you get an influx of gold and olive oil, but I wonder really whether you want the food and the gold. Because, you know, you can get the olive oil from either from trade or from olive groves in the late game, or both, if you want, obviously. But if you had to make a choice, it feels almost like olive groves is the better option, because if you've got a lot of gold and olive oil, it seems like they both do the same thing for you. Especially if you get the Imperial Age landmarks that gives you siege for olive oil in particular. We'll have to see though. Of course, you'd never say no to gold. Speaking of gold, that's a lot of gold there by Cal. We might look to try and defend that position with the keep or so, because there are 2 gold veins there, pretty exposed. Felisberto coming down south though instead. Tried to get that relic in the end there, didn't quite manage it. Kalp does have 1 relic in the bag already, looking to pick up another. This is smart by Kalp. I actually really like this addition, and in fact, does he? Yeah, he's got the border settlements now as well. So that line of sight is going to be looking very good for him. Look at that, he sees everything. Even trying to get some villagers here, just to get the houses up. I'm not sure that's going to work in the end. Being chased down. Looks like Felisberto wants to take an engagement. Doesn't quite yet. Backing away for now. He might look to use his longbow though. There's a couple of cataracts going in a little bit too close for comfort. Kalp does back away now. Oh, we do see a market transition, so he's going to go for trade. 3 markets as well. Alright, well he's going to be looking to catch up on the eco, and rightly so. I mean, obviously he's aware of the second town centre out for Kalp. Kalp keeps that village alive for now, believe it or not. On 1 HP. He's getting the second relic in now, Kalp, and he's going to get 2 more as well, most likely. That's a lot of relics coming in. Now, unfortunately for the players, of course, without the Grand Winery, the relics only gather gold rather than gathering olive oil as well. But hey, as I say, you wouldn't say no to gold, would you? Does lose that villager in the end. Alright, well, looks like Kalp is going for a mass house spam strategy for the vision. I mean, it's not a bad idea. It's like it's a really nice, cheap way of getting vision on the map, right? Now, Kalp is fully aware about the trade possibility or the problems that poses. So might look to push out a little bit. Getting a couple of Chirosiphons. I like the addition of the Chirosiphons, I have to say. It's a lot often that in pushes like this, you don't have siege, and then you kind of win fights, but you don't necessarily do much infrastructure damage, but that's not going to be the case with the Chirosiphon here involved. There are quite a lot of longbows there for Kalp, just pushing those units away. I do love the numbers of cataphracts, actually. I think this is a bit of a dangerous situation for Felisberto, because the cataphracts, these guys are beefy guys. You've got 360 health and 28 sword melee damage. I think a knight at this stage has pretty similar stats apart from the HP. The HP for the cataphract is something else. He might use the trample. Will he use the trample ability here, Kalp? He's definitely using the triumph, and it doesn't feel like Felisberto has enough to deal with those cataphracts. The cataphracts do use their trample ability. Chirosiphon is still alive. They're still burning things alive, and Well, but the mass is taken care of. Felisberto has to back away. I don't think he can take this fight. Does have longbows. Might be looking to take out the lance connector. In fact, okay, Kalp is not happy with the burning situation. Decides to address that first. It does add in a couple of ringing guards. I like that addition, actually, because well, we kind of talked about it earlier, how you want cavalry. But sprinkling in a couple of ringing guards can be really effective in this fight here. Cataphract's going to dive in. Might be using the trample damage again ability if he can. He can actually use it, so you might see it again, which we'll see. This is bad for Felisberto. Going to try and mark this as best as he can, but he's going to lose a lot of units on the retreat. A couple of lance connector added in as well for Kalp, using that mercenary contract. The glass cannons, they are going to have to back away for now. Alright, well, Kalp is quite happy with the pushback. The concern for Kalp is, though, he can't really let the trade go on for too long. He's got to have that in the back of his mind. The cataphract number's not looking as well as they used to. Just connecting that, wait, what? I don't think it's connected just yet. Oh, he hasn't quite finished building it. He has now. As a water level 5. Well, Felisberto continuing to put some pressure in the north. Okay, he's trying to take down the houses. He's not happy about the vision, and that preoccupies things a lot here for Felisberto in the north. Cataphract numbers now looking in good numbers. This is a good fight for Kalp. He's replenished his army. He probably feels quite confident about his options here. It would make sense to dive this. I think he is, and I think maybe Felisberto dived in a little bit too far. We saw the trample ability come out, and the Cataphract jumping right on top of those longbows and archers. There's just too many ranged units here. Felisberto has to head back. He doesn't have any major units against this heavily armored unit composition. The Varangian guards, the Cataphract's chasing on, does have a mangonel now, which will certainly help take care of the longbows if it can get close enough, but that is a big if. Looks like Kalp just pushing back a little bit. I'm a bit surprised by that. I felt like he had enough, especially with the Varangian guards, but maybe he's not keen on taking a decisive fight just yet. And the one thing I actually quite love about the fact that he's chosen Cataphracts is it does mean that he should be able to use the trample damage right into the back of that army and get through to the mangonels. You don't necessarily need springles, I think, with the Cataphracts. We shall see if he decides to get them. I haven't necessarily seen it that often just yet, where Cataphracts are used as a sort of anti-siege unit, kind of trampling through enemy lines. We'll see. Alright, well, second site in the north being capped. That's a bit optimistic, isn't it? Holy smokes, but he does have all 5 relics here, Kalp, which makes things a little bit difficult for Felisberto in the late game. It's a nice bit of population efficiency, getting that gold trickle in. Oh, looks like Kalp is going to try and get an outpost. Oh, keep even. Okay, well, I'm not sure that's going to work. He might have to cancel that. Just not enough villagers, and Felisberto sending his Byzantine villagers to fight them. I mean, what? Is he going to commit to this? I mean, he must know that this is happening, right? He's going to try and keep it up, though. There's no army just yet. Felisberto going to send his military, and yeah, that's not going to go up. He's going to lose a lot of villagers as well. That's a shame. He needs to be careful about not losing too much stone. He's going to need to delete that. But on the back of this, it will be the Foreign Engineering Company out for Kalp, and that's going to be a really nice landmark to get to the Imperial Age. Felisberto not quite there yet on the food count. He's going to lose a bit of stone here. Kalp, delete it, my dude. It's just losing stone here, I'm afraid. There's no way he gets that up. I mean... Okay, I mean, at this point, he's just lost a lot of stone. It's unfortunate. He does delete it eventually, but he has got to the Imperial Age. There's something in his favour, and now he should be able to take up these Cataphracts. He's going to get Greased Axle, so he's going to get some mangonels himself, which is actually a really nice move, because there's a lot of infantry here for Felisberto, right? Felisberto really hasn't gone the route of the cavalry. And I think this is a big problem for him. He's going to need a lot of springolds. And I think the combination of Cataphracts and mangonels could be incredibly strong for the Byzantines. It's got the veteran Royal Knights as well. Alright, well, Felisberto is going to go to the Imperial Age himself. It does have quite a lot of olive oil, actually. I quite like that. It's kind of almost like he saved the olive oil up for that particular landmark. Longbow's going to try and attack the Cataphracts, but they are tanking so much of it. Mangonel deploys, doesn't get all that much value just yet, but going to get Roller Shutter triggers to make his springald a little bit better. And also going to be getting the upgrade to his mercenary house. Oh, hello. Alright, well, Felisberto was trying something cheeky. It's not going to work, though. Does have a lot of traders, I've got to say. Holy smokes. How many traders has he got now? 13? Okay, it felt like a lot more than that. Actually, that's just one market. Oh, Mangonel does take out a trader. Cataphract's going to chase the rest of them down. The trouble is for Felisberto, it's not a very safe trade route, right? The map doesn't lend itself too nicely to trade, and if he loses the trade, that's a big part of his economy going down. Springwall does come out, the Cataphract charges it down though, and Felisberto's in a lot of trouble. I feel like the army here is just a little bit stronger for Calp, right? Because he's got Cataphracts of very premium units. Mostly Mangonels, longbows, and a couple of Lance Connector for Felisberto. I feel like the Cataphracts just do better than that. Does use the Triumph ability as well, making use of the Imperial Hippodrome with that ability, and the Imperial Hippodrome for Felisberto is under siege with the 2 Mangonels being torched by Cataphracts as well. This is looking a bit dicey for Felisberto. Going to be losing a couple of traders that didn't get the memo that there's an ongoing war here. Another Mangonel deploys. This is a good shot on the Cataphracts, and the unfortunately the glass cannon that are the Lance Connector do get taken apart, and there's probably enough here to hold back these Cataphracts. There's probably another wave coming in. Look at the food count for Calp and his Olive Grove transition. I think this is what we were talking about earlier, right? The trade is always precarious, is not as well protected. And that big chunk of the eco is going down for Felisberto, but Calp, his food income is skyrocketing. He's got olive oil coming out of his ears as well. And the Mangonel's going to deploy on those archers. He takes a huge hit there, Felisberto. He needs some Springords. There are 2 Mangonels. They're being repaired. Actually, they're not. It's just the units behind are being healed. A couple of Cataphracts coming out for Felisberto, but not necessarily enough. Cataphracts coming in the north for Calp. These guys are elite Cataphracts as well. Using the trample damage on those archers. Those longbows rather, and the longbows are going to get torn to shreds. And they do decent amount of damage though against the Cataphracts, but I feel like he's getting pushed very hard, especially with the bringing in guards using the berserking ability. Mangonel getting good value there for Felisberto. Felisberto siege is helping him out. It's kind of saving him from now. The Calp has activated the Sacred Site timer. Taking out the Mangonel is pretty big there for Calp. Does have 3 Springords. I think that 3rd Springord really helps the situation, Calp. Probably feels a little bit better now, engaging, even if there's a Mangonel. Especially with Roller Shutter triggers, I think Calp should be happy with the engagements. Taking out the Imperial Hippodrome, leaving 3 more landmarks to be taken. The trouble for Felisberto, right, he lost a huge chunk of his economy. The trade, losing that was pretty tough. Gonna leave that forward outpost there, Felisberto. The outpost did good work for him in the early game, but doesn't seem like it's going to be doing too much for him now. That trade, again, really well exposed. Looks like he's gone for elite archers, and does have elite Cataphracts himself. But that's a fight that Calp will be happy to take, even with the archers in the back line. I mean, ultimately, all this does is allows Calp to spend his population, right? He's got population capacity, 200 population. He's happy to throw away units at this point. He can definitely replace them. And the more he does this, the more damage is coming out. And he's affecting the trade here as well. Oh, going to take out 2 Nesta Bees. That was rough. Did have the Foreign Engineering Company here on the northwest. It's pretty unguarded, and so any siege that comes out, Calp is going to be looking to pounce on that and is going to be losing a lot of villages here. Just isn't able to protect a lot of his production here, Felisberto. Now it's being pushed with Streltsy as well. You got to say, when you see Streltsy in the field, you know you're in trouble. A premium unit designed for a premium state of the game, and Calp going to be taking the fight, and he takes the win. I mean, he just completely zerged his way through in the end and did a lot of damage, and Felisberto couldn't find an answer. He lost a lot of his trade, and ultimately that Olive Grove transition for Calp is probably what won him the game. Hope you guys enjoyed the casted game. Take care, and see you next time.